Hi everyone, my name is Claire, and when I was applying to graduate schools, I was desperately looking for somebody on YouTube who would talk about the graduate school process, the timeline, or just tips on what you should be doing now so that you can get into graduate school, and I didn't find anything on any platform. So this is why I'm starting this YouTube channel and why I'm coming out with this video to hopefully make you feel a little bit less stressed, overwhelmed, or anxious, because I know I really could have benefited from this instead of going down a rabbit hole on Reddit searching for answers, which only makes things worse. I didn't go to an Ivy League for undergrad, I didn't take any gap years, and I got into Yale and Duke's master's program straight from a public university at 22 years old. I only applied to 2 graduate school programs and I got into both. I applied to Yale's MPH program in environmental health sciences, and then I applied to Duke's MS global health program. So a little bit about me, I went to Texas A&M University. I majored in environmental studies and I have 2 minors in climate change and public health. I did not have a perfect GPA. My major GPA, which was all my major specific courses, I had a 4.0, but my overall GPA was a 3.75, which is a good GPA, but I feel like whenever you're applying to Ivy League grad schools, you kind of have that mindset that you have to be perfect in academics. That is not the case. I'm living proof of that. Although I did have extensive research experience and I was very well rounded, which I'll get into that later. In my senior year, I applied December and February to Yale and Duke's master's programs, and I heard back from both of them. Duke, I believe, was a month after I applied. Actually, I think it was only 3 weeks after I applied, which was really fast. And then Yale took a really long time because I applied in December and I heard back from them mid-March during spring break. I did not take the GRE. It was not required for me. It was optional. I just had to show proof of quantitative ability. So I'm going to go into the application process / breakdown so you can learn more about my stats and maybe compare it to yourself, and maybe that'll help you a little bit more and feel a little bit less overwhelmed or anxious about it. So I did not have a perfect GPA. My major GPA was a 4.0, so it was perfect, meaning all my major specific classes I got A's in. My overall GPA was a 3.75, which is still good, but I just kind of thought that for an Ivy you had to be completely perfect, but that is not the case because I got in. I think I got in because of my experiences, and maybe you can learn from this and start applying that now. The number one thing that I would do right now is get involved in research. I cannot stress that enough. Even if you're in social sciences, get involved in research. If you're a history major, you can do research. Public health, do research. Any type of field, just do research so that you can gain a diverse skill set and hopefully gain a mentor that will help you through the graduate school process. In my undergrad, I started reaching out to people my sophomore year so that my junior and senior years, I was doing research for 2 solid years. My university, they had a designated research program where PhD students were looking for research assistants, so maybe your university might have that. If not, just go to a professor that you like and has the same research interest as you, send them a quick email and see if you can do research with them. Within those 2 years, I was in 5 research projects, and in one of those I got a publication out of that, and it was published by the time I graduated, which is really cool. Usually people in undergrad and in grad school do not get a publication until later in life, so I would highly recommend getting involved in research projects that could potentially get published. That way your name is out there and grad schools will see how serious you are. Aside from the research, I was very involved in my university's community. So number 2, I would highly recommend spearheading something, whether that's starting your own organization, research project, or nonprofit, something along those lines, because universities, specifically grad schools, want to see that you are giving back to your community. Because at least in the programs I applied to, which were focused on public health, that's all about giving back to your community. So they wanted to see that you were already doing that and that you had that desire to continue that in their programs. So what I did is I co-founded the first nonprofit climate change advocacy organization at my university, and I really think that's what made me stand out from applicants aside from my research experiences. So I would highly recommend that you do that right now. Another thing that I really wish that somebody would have told me sooner is that you need to have quantitative skills. Now I know nobody wants to do that. I did not want to do that. I already had to take GIS as one of my courses and I was really not looking forward to that, but I'm kind of glad I did that now because a lot of labs that I talked to amongst universities thought that that was kind of a unique skill that I had. Now, I don't really want to apply that now because it was a big pain. But right now, get on top of learning a quantitative skill. That could be something like Python, which is not fun, or R statistical software. That's what I learned to use as like proof for the quantitative ability instead of taking the GRE. So do that right now. It's not going to take as much time, honestly. When I found out that was a portion of the application, having proof of quantitative ability, I didn't have any quantitative skills, and I told my research mentor, and she basically came up with a project for me so that I could learn our statistical software and apply it to something so that I could show it in my application, which is another reason why you should do research, is so that you can get a mentor that can help you. Okay, now we're going to move into the personal statement, which every single graduate school requires. They just may vary a little bit depending on which program you're applying to. And the two programs I applied to, Yale was an MPH and Duke was an MS. So the personal statements were just a little bit different, but I got to use bits and pieces from each for each other's applications. My biggest advice for you for when you are writing your personal statement is to make sure that is you on the paper, that when you are submitting it, you are delivering yourself in a paper, and that university knows who you are, what you want to do, why you want to do it, and how you're going to do it at their university, all while giving back to their community. Do not just list your accomplishments. Now, they don't just want to see those accomplishments listed out because they can see that on your resume or CV. So basically just tie in and connect your accomplishments to your who, what, where, when, why, how. For example, in my personal statement, it asked me, what are your formative public health experiences and how have they shaped you into who you are today and why you're interested in our program? Those were pretty similar between Yale and Duke. So I picked out my personal public health experiences. I tied them into my research interests, which are climate change, public health, and environmental justice. And then I also was able to tie in my research experiences, my founding of the climate change advocacy organizations. And then the key takeaway here in your personal statement is to just be you, explain the who, what, where, when, why, how, who you want to work with, why you want to, how you're going to do that, and then also tie in the program, not just the lab you want to work with. I kind of tied in both. I think your application will be really strong if you show faculty that you want to work with, especially if you've already contacted that faculty, which I would highly recommend only looking at schools where they have faculty that you'd be interested in working with, which kind of ties me into my next point. You need to narrow down your research interest to maybe 3 or 4 words. And for me, that was climate change, public health, and environmental justice. And that will help narrow down your search for faculty members. Do not, I cannot stress this enough, do not pick a university just because of its reputation and its program. The faculty is what's going to make your experience at that university. And at some point, you're going to have to do research with somebody, whether if you're STEM or social sciences. For me, I'm kind of a blend of both. So it was really important to me to find a faculty member where my research interests really closely aligned with them. A lot to say, go online, look at schools that maybe you're interested in, and find some faculty members that you'd be potentially interested in doing research with. Reach out to them, send them an email why you're interested in them, and have a phone call with them and see if maybe they have space in your lab, or that maybe in the future, whenever you get there, if you get in, you can work with them. And for PhDs, it's a little bit of a different process where you do really need to have somebody who can pull for you on the application side. Whereas for masters, you don't really need that, although I think it is helpful because I mentioned who I wanted to work with and why I'd be an asset in their lab, which shows that I have done research. So don't just pick the program, pick the school also for the faculty. I mean, if my lab that I really want to work for was at any other university, I would have applied there too. And just to wrap things up, this is my final advice for those of y'all who are maybe thinking about going to graduate school, or if you're about to start the process soon in August. Just a reminder, you don't need to have perfect stats. You just need to know your research interest, be involved as much as you can at your university, or if you're out of school and you've had a job, multiple jobs, or if you have other degrees, that helps out a lot. I think it was really daunting, at least for me, to apply to not only graduate school, but just Ivy Leagues, coming from a public university, knowing that I haven't had a career yet, and so I was pretty nervous. So these should be the things that you can take away from this video and will hopefully make you feel a little bit less overwhelmed, stressed, anxious. I am thinking about making a video more about the graduate school timeline, because I know for me, there wasn't really much out there about after you apply, when do you hear back and how long, and which makes you super anxious. It really ate me up alive just waiting for a couple months to hear back from Yale, and I just went to Reddit, and that kind of honestly only made things worse. So I'm thinking about maybe coming out with a video talking about the timeline, which should hopefully relieve some stress and anxiety. And I know I really wish that I came across somebody's channel on YouTube talking about that timeline and just content about graduate school. So expect content about me moving to Yale and day in a life at grad school, because that's something I know I really wish I would have seen. But if you have any questions or comments or any content you would like to see next, please leave them in the comments below. Bye!